You don't really belong here anymore, do you? Not with us. The words slipped out of my brother's mouth like champagne foam, light and mocking, yet cutting sharper than glass. Laughter rippled across the engagement hall, not cruel from every mouth, but loud enough that I felt it in my bones. Hi everyone, my name is Elena Carter, I'm 27, and I never thought betrayal would feel like velvet on the surface and knives underneath. Have you ever stood in a room full of people who share your blood, yet felt like a stranger among them? That was me at my own brother's engagement party. The chandeliers above sparkled, throwing fractured light over polished tables, white roses and crystal flutes. Everything was staged perfectly, down to the matching blush napkins folded into swan shapes. But my brother's words broke that illusion, louder than any violin playing in the background. I forced my lips into a smile, the kind you wear when you're trapped in a dream you can't wake up from. My hands gripped the edge of the linen tablecloth, grounding myself in the texture of woven threads, reminding myself not to shake. I told myself, don't give them a show. Not here. Not yet. But every eye was on me waiting. His fiancée leaned into him, whispering something I couldn't hear, her diamond ring flashing like a cruel spotlight. Mom raised her glass, pretending not to notice. Dad avoided my eyes altogether. My chest burned, but I swallowed it down with champagne that suddenly tasted bitter, metallic, wrong. And then, as if on cue, the waiter arrived. Bill folder in hand, polite smile plastered on his face. The room shifted. Chairs scraped. Cards were passed. Declined. One after the other. First his fiancée. Then her parents. Then even my father. The silence that followed was jagged, electric, humiliating. That was the moment. My cue, my choice. I slipped my sleek black card across the tray. The waiter's eyes widened, his voice breaking the tension. Thank you, Ms. Carter. The restaurant owner will be right over. The entire hall froze and I could feel my brother's gaze burning into me. Tell me, in that moment, who really didn't belong anymore? The silence was suffocating. For a heartbeat it felt like the entire restaurant had stopped breathing. My brother's fiancée's smile wavered, her cheeks flushing pink, while my father shifted in his seat like a man suddenly exposed under a spotlight. The restaurant owner approached. A tall man in a dark suit, his presence commanding. He bowed slightly toward me, not toward my father, not toward my brother, but toward me. Miss Carter, thank you for covering the evening. We appreciate your loyalty. His voice was warm, almost reverent, and it cut through the tension like a knife. The sound of my name, echoed in the air. I watched my family squirm. My mother pressed her lips tight as though tasting shame for the first time. My brother's fiancée leaned forward, whispering sharply, "Why didn't you warn me your card wouldn't work?" His face twisted with anger, his eyes flicking toward me like I had orchestrated the whole disaster. But I hadn't. Not yet. I sat still, calm, the stem of my champagne glass cooling my fingertips. Inside, though, my heart thundered like a war drum. Years of being dismissed, overlooked, treated like the disposable daughter. And now, in front of their polished friends and extended family, the cracks were finally showing. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. That would have been too easy. Instead, I lowered my gaze, letting the silence stretch until it suffocated them more than any words I could have spoken. The owner leaned in again. Miss Carter, would you like to settle the bill now, or shall I keep it open in case your guests order more? Guests. Not family. Guests. I caught my brother's reflection in the polished wine glass. His jaw was clenched, his pride unraveling thread by thread. For once I wasn't the outsider. I was the center, the one holding everything together while their world quietly fractured. And as the music played on, pretending nothing had happened, I knew one truth pulsed louder than the violins. This wasn't the revenge. This was just the first ripple in the storm I had been waiting years to unleash. The owner's footsteps faded, leaving behind a silence that weighed heavier than crystal chandeliers. I sat there, my black card tucked neatly away, while the eyes of strangers lingered on me. They didn't know the history, the years of slights, the quiet humiliations. But in that moment they saw what my own family refused to. I was the one holding the power. My brother cleared his throat, forcing a laugh that cracked halfway through. Well, I guess Elena wanted her moment tonight. Congratulations, you've had it. His fiancée tugged his sleeve, her eyes darting nervously at the guests. Their perfect evening was unraveling, and they scrambled to stitch it back together. I tilted my glass toward him, my voice calm but edged like glass. Funny, I didn't say a word. Seems the spotlight found me on its own. His jaw tightened. He hated when I did that, when I stayed composed, when I didn't give him the explosion he expected. My silence had always been more dangerous than my words. Mom finally spoke, her voice sharp enough to slice the air. Elena, must you always make everything about yourself? This is your brother's night. Her words stung not because they were new but because they were familiar. The same old refrain echoing from childhood, every achievement of mine brushed aside, every failure of his excused. I could almost hear the past layered over the present like two tracks playing at once. I leaned back, my chair creaking softly, and smiled. You're right, Mom. Tonight is his night. And he just announced to everyone that I'm not family anymore. So why is it my fault when his fiancé's card fails? Or Dad's? Or yours? The table froze. My father's face darkened, the vein in his temple pulsing. My brother's fiancé avoided eye contact altogether. Guests began whispering behind linen napkins, their curiosity simmering hotter than the soup bowls left untouched. For once I didn't feel like the unwanted daughter. I felt like the reckoning they had all hoped would never come. And as I sat there, calm in the chaos, a thought burned through me like fire. If one night could shake them this much, what would happen when the rest of my truth finally surfaced? The whispers around the room multiplied, low currents of gossip flickering from table to table. Aunts, cousins, distant relatives. Their eyes darted between me and my brother like they'd stumbled into a play they hadn't rehearsed for. My brother forced a smile, but his voice betrayed him. Let's not make this bigger than it is. Everyone knows Elena likes drama. That word, drama, hit me like an old bruise being pressed again. For years they'd painted me as the unstable one, the overreactor, the girl who could never quite fit the mold. My throat tightened, but this time instead of shrinking I let the sting transform into steel. I set my champagne flute down, the glass kissing the tablecloth with a soft chime. Drama? I think you mean truth. But I understand. It's easier to dismiss me than face what's right in front of you. My brother's fiancée stiffened, her manicured fingers twitching against her wine glass. She leaned toward him, hissing words she thought no one could hear. I caught fragments. Embarrassment, money problems, guests watching. Then Dad slammed his palm on the table. The silverware rattled. Enough, Elena. You've embarrassed us long enough. Pay the bill quietly and sit down. That was it. The final twist of the knife. They still thought I was the child they could command, the one they'd shoved aside in favor of their golden son. I looked at him, the man who was supposed to protect me, who instead used me as a shield whenever my brother stumbled. My voice was calm, but it carried. Funny thing, Dad. You've spent years telling me I wasn't enough. Tonight it looks like I'm the only one who is. The air cracked open. Gasps fluttered across the tables. My father's mouth opened, but no words came out. My brother's fiancé's face flushed deep crimson, and my mother pressed a hand to her temple as though the weight of my words were a migraine she couldn't bear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the background noise of this family. I was the center stage, and they couldn't dim the spotlight anymore. The music from the hired quartet faltered, a violin string squeaking off-key as if it, too, sensed the fracture in the room. I sat still, my heartbeat steady now, the silence around me louder than any applause could have been. My brother broke first. He shoved his chair back, the scrape echoing through the hall. You've always wanted to ruin things for me. Even tonight you couldn't just sit quietly. You had to make it about money, didn't you? Money. That was rich, coming from him. I let the word hang in the air, then leaned forward, my elbows brushing the table's edge. You're right. Let's talk about money. About the car Mom signed over to you when you wrecked yours. About the checks Dad wrote every time you couldn't make rent. About the tuition they covered for you while I worked 2 jobs to pay mine. Gasps again, sharper this time. Guests weren't just watching anymore, they were listening. My brother's face paled. His fiancée's eyes widened as though she'd just been handed a script she hadn't rehearsed. Mom's fork clattered against her plate, and Dad's fists clenched so tightly the knuckles whitened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Years of silence had sharpened my words into arrows. But I'm the dramatic one, right? I'm the problem. I leaned back, folding my arms across my chest. If this is drama, then maybe drama just looks like truth finally having a stage. A heavy pause stretched between us, broken only when the restaurant owner returned, discreetly placing the receipt folder beside me. The gesture was small, but in that room it was thunder. I slid the card back without hesitation, every movement deliberate. The owner bowed his head slightly. "Thank you again, Ms. Carter. Everything is settled." Every eye turned to me. Every smile around the table was brittle, every breath shallow. For once the power didn't belong to them. And in that crack of silence I felt it. This wasn't just a scene at an engagement party. This was the unraveling of a dynasty my parents had built on favoritism and silence. And I was no longer silent. The room no longer felt like a celebration. The roses on the tables looked too stiff, the chandeliers too bright, the laughter too forced. Guests whispered openly now, their curious stares landing on me like moths drawn to a flame they couldn't look away from. My brother's fiancée finally snapped. She slammed her napkin onto the table, her voice shaking. "Is this what I'm marrying into?" Declined cards, family drama, and some outsider swooping in to embarrass us all. Her words sliced deeper than she realized. Outsider. She didn't even bother to pretend I belonged. But before my brother could defend himself, I spoke. Calm, clear. Every syllable calculated. "You're right. I am the outsider. Always have been. But tonight your fairy tale cracked, and it wasn't because of me. It was because the truth doesn't bend to appearances." Her face blanched. My brother muttered something under his breath, too low for the table to hear, but his anger rippled in the tightness of his jaw, the flush creeping up his neck. Dad's hand clenched around his glass. "Enough, Elena. You've said your piece. Leave before you humiliate us further." The command struck like lightning, but instead of burning me, it lit something fierce inside. I rose slowly, my chair legs scraping against marble. All eyes followed me as I lifted my clutch, straightened my dress, and smoothed the fabric like armor. "Leave." My voice was steady, threaded with something they hadn't expected, finality. "No, Dad. I think it's time you all sit in the silence you created. You told me I wasn't family anymore. Tonight I believed you. And yet when the bill came, who carried you?" Their faces tightened, pride bruised, secrets exposed. My brother's fiancée looked ready to bolt. My mother's lips trembled. I turned, heels clicking against polished floors, and for the first time in years, I felt taller than the shadows that had followed me all my life. Behind me the music picked back up, but it was hollow now, the soundtrack to a family that had just been stripped bare. The corridor outside the banquet hall smelled faintly of polished wood and champagne. My heels clicked against marble, steady, defiant, each step carrying me further from the weight of their stares. But even as I walked, fragments of voices bled through the walls. Whispers, excuses, damage control. My brother's laugh rang hollow, brittle as glass. I paused by the mirrored wall near the entrance. My reflection stared back at me, the woman they had underestimated for years. The dress shimmered under the chandelier, but it was my eyes that caught me, steady, cold, alive. For once I didn't see the discarded daughter. I saw someone who had survived. Behind me footsteps approached. Her perfume reached me before her voice. "Elena, wait." I didn't turn. "Why? So you can tell me again not to make a scene? Or remind me I ruined his night?" Her silence was answer enough. Still she stood there, clutching her shawl like a shield. "You didn't have to flaunt it. People will talk." I turned then slowly. "They've always talked, Mom. But never about him. It's always been about me, the difficult one, the dramatic one. Tonight I didn't create the story. I just stopped carrying their silence." Her lips parted, but nothing came. She looked older somehow, her carefully painted face cracking under the weight of truth. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You told me once a family is only as strong as its secrets. Maybe that's why ours keeps breaking." Her eyes flickered, guilt, regret, something unspoken. But she didn't answer. She just turned back toward the hall, retreating into the gilded room where lies still danced with violins. I stood alone in the lobby, the night stretching wide and open before me. For the first time I realized I didn't need their approval, their seats at the table, or their name to feel whole. But poetic justice wasn't about walking away. No, it was about leaving something behind, something they couldn't erase. And in my clutch, tucked neatly among lipstick and receipts, was the letter. The one that held the truth none of them expected to see. The night air outside the restaurant was cool, salted with the faint scent of the ocean just a few blocks away. I stood beneath the awning, clutching the envelope tighter, the streetlights casting long shadows that seemed to follow me like ghosts of the past. I could have left quietly, disappearing into the night with the satisfaction of dignity intact. But poetic justice doesn't bloom in silence. It grows in the light of truth. So I turned back. The maitre d' opened the door, surprised to see me return, but I didn't pause. I walked into the hall where laughter had thinned to nervous chatter, where champagne glasses clinked just a little too forced. I stopped at the center, every head turning. Calmly, I placed the letter on the gift table, nestled between glittering envelopes and bows. My brother's fiancée's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" she demanded. I smiled. "Something more valuable than a toaster or a check. It's the truth." The hush that followed was sharp enough to cut crystal. They didn't know yet. They couldn't. But they would, as soon as the envelope was opened. Inside were copies of bank statements, transfers, debts hidden under my brother's name but carried under Dad's. Receipts of money funneled quietly, covered by my parents while they told me I wasn't enough. Every page was proof of favoritism they could no longer deny. I didn't linger. I didn't watch the explosion that would come. My heels carried me out before the storm broke, before the whispers turned into screams. Some stories aren't meant to be told face to face. They're meant to echo in the silence you leave behind. Outside, the air tasted freer. For the first time I felt lighter, like I had shed not just their expectations but the chains of their lies. They had announced I wasn't family anymore. Tonight I believed them, and I realized it was the greatest gift they could ever give me. Because family isn't blood. It's truth. And the truth was finally mine.